Okay, spoilers for Spider-Man Brand New Day. So I've been hearing a lot of people talk about the new Spider-Man movie, and everyone's rating it like 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. It's the perfect movie, best Spider-Man, best Peter Parker. Like, okay, I disagree. I strongly disagree. I understand why people like it, but it has some flaws that ruin it for me. So let's first talk about the good stuff. The movie starts out great. I love the intro. I love the references to comic book panels. I love the action. They clearly took a lot from the video games, like the swinging mechanics and the finishing moves, and that was great to see. I love how broody Peter Parker is at first, because like coming off of the last movie, you would need to have like sort of a dark theme to this movie, and they hit that part of it's 10 out of 10, right? So if you just want to go see a cool looking, fight scenes and see nerdy references in a movie, then yeah, I can see why some people like this movie. If you have kids, if you're not really, if you go high, if you don't really want to think, you just want to turn your brain off and be entertained, I can see how this movie gets high marks. And honestly, this movie could have gotten high marks from me too. And here's the thing. My theory is that this was supposed to be a banger movie, but then some fucking slub came in last minute and forced his own ideas into it. Because when you look at the first half of the movie, it is great. And then they introduce Jean Grey, and it's like it's night and day. It doesn't really match up. It really does feel like someone came in last minute and said, hey, I'm the producer, I'm the executive, and I need you to introduce these things for me. Okay, so let's talk about the bad. What's the problem? The problem is the plot. All right, so let's start with Jean Grey. Jean is introduced as a body snatcher who's attacking all the damage control buildings. She uses a tank to break down the wall and get to the Scorpion. Why does she need a tank when she can just hop into people? Why does she need the Scorpion specifically? They might mention that in the movie. I only watched it once. I'm not one of those people that's going to watch the movie 5 times so I can rate it. Like, I watched it once. That's the rating that it gets. Anyway, okay, so she gets the tank. Let's assume that she has to do that. Like, the security protocols that they have in there would identify her and lock it down, or, whatever. But like, once you have the tank and you get into the building and you're hopping through all of these employees of damage control, why are you going after Scorpion when once you hop into their brains, you can see their memories and their thoughts and their knowledge? They would know that Metzger is the head of damage control. Why are you not looking for Metzger? Like, maybe the original plan was to go after Scorpion, but then once you get into their mind, shouldn't you know more about the business, the company, and recognize like where the office of the director is at the very least? Like, okay, weird, but okay, let's just accept it. Maybe she's moving fast and she's not really thinking, she's not absorbing the information, she's just trying to run inside their bodies. Okay. But then there's the interactions that she has with Spider-Man. There's literally no reason why she needs to be so antagonistic towards him, like at all. She goes full bad guy. Never go full bad guy. She goes full bad guy and there's no reason for it, right? Like, she has one enemy, which is damage control. And instead of taking the fight to them, which I'm going to stress again, she does not need a tank to do. And like, the only reason that Spider-Man is able to find her is because she keeps using tanks and supervillains instead of using janitors. And like, you could like use a window washer and then just like knock on the window and then jump into the, like, you don't want to go through the lobby because they got that detection thing downstairs. You can just knock on the window as a window washer and then hop into someone from there and then just go throughout the building. Like, she's doing it in the way that a movie requires you to do it, so that there's a movie trajectory, but it doesn't like hold internal cohesiveness, if that makes, like, it's not actually logical the way things are happening, unless you just think it's a movie, so it has to progress, so they have to do it this way. And that really ruins movies for me. Another thing on this idea that the executive came in and just decided that they're going to force people to use their ideas. I think that's what happened, and I think it wasn't a fully fleshed out idea, because you decided to use Jean Grey, a mutant, an X-Men. And that kind of makes sense because we have Doomsday coming up, right, which is going to introduce the X-Men. And so, why not throw that in here, other than the fact that I don't think you really have the licensing for the X-Men, so why even bother trying? Because there's other telepaths you could use. There's other body snatchers that you could use and just make that clean. Like, hey, there's a person that has body snatching powers. No, you use Jean Grey, which is specifically a founding X-Men, and then didn't say a goddamn thing about any other mutants or any other X-Men. In the whole movie, you didn't even use the word mutant. Nothing. So what was the point of introducing a mutant and then not using the word mutants? Like, it would make more sense if they were like, oh, my name is Jean Grey, and my sister was kidnapped, and, the only reason I'm alive right now is because some friends, saved me, or at the end of the movie, I'm just going to try to get away, and I'm going to take a bus upstate to the X Mansion, or just to a mansion, or just to meet up with some friends that will keep me safe and keep things under wraps, or just something. Say like, oh, people like us are discriminated against, and that's why I'm fighting against damage control, because they're kidnapping people like me. Just people like me would have been fine. They made it specifically about her sister, and I just don't see why you needed to bring in someone who has the baggage of a lot of backstory and a lot of connections to other comic books if you're not going to introduce any of those other elements in the story. Just make up a teleporter, or sorry, not a teleporter, make up a body snatcher, and just have them hate damage control, and then have, you know, things progress like that. But anyway, like, to me, the most egregious thing she does is pull up in a non-tinted car right next to the scene of the crime and get caught on camera. And this irks me because there's literally no reason for her to be there. It would have made more sense if Spider-Man had to like use the cameras in the alleyway to track that person throughout the day and like scrub through different, you know, he said he has cameras all over the city, which is illegal, but like, you know, #flock. So he scrubs through all the different, you know, street cams and tracking him as he's walking throughout the day. And then eventually he sees Jean Grey is the one that jumps into his body. He gets the, you know, the ID face match on it, and he's like, okay, this is Jean Grey. That would have made a lot more sense than Jean Grey, who is a telepath, who can do things from afar, deciding that she needs to show up in person and get her face scanned while doing something. Like again, they made Jean Grey completely stupid and completely evil. And there's no reason for her to be that way, especially when you consider that the way that they represent her powers is she jumps into somebody's body, she reads all of their memories, and gets all of their skills, right? Because the old woman was driving a tank, which means Jean Grey must have hopped into the body of an army vet, learned how to drive a tank, got back into her own body, and then jumped into the old woman, and through the old woman was controlling the tank, right? So, and also later on when she's like using the hand, when she jumps into the hand ninjas, she's using ninja techniques. So it's like it's not like she just jumps into bodies and it's just Jean Grey in that body. She has all the memories and all the skills of the people in those bodies, right? So with that being said, why did you need to show up in person? Wouldn't someone that you've jumped into the body of so far have the knowledge or the intelligence to know that this was a stupid ass idea? Like, wouldn't a telepath mean that you're like the smartest person on earth because you can just jump into the heads of all the smartest people and learn all the smartest things? No one was tech savvy that she's jumped into so far. Not one of them would know that showing up in person to your crime is a stupid idea. I don't know. That's a riff. I might cut that part out. All right. So I know I said the last part was the most egregious thing she does, which is pulling up in the alley and getting identified. But this part, it's even worse than being egregious. It's just straight up stupid. What they do is Peter Parker identifies her, he finds out her name, and immediately afterwards, they just cut to her completely giving up on being anonymous. She walks in to the damage control building with no hoodie, no mask, no telepath-controlled proxy person, and just yells her full government name. Like, what? Maybe this would make sense if there was like a deleted scene where Spidey confronts her and says, it's over, we all know who you are, you can't be anonymous anymore. And then she like stops trying to hide herself and she's like, well, if you already know, let me just... But within the context of Jean Grey, who does not know that Spider-Man knows who she is, why has she for months been hiding herself and using other people, body snatching, to go at damage control? But now today she wants to bust in there and without no mask. She wasn't even wearing a COVID mask. Right, she just walked up dolo. It doesn't make sense for her character to act the way that she does at all. Now, if they wanted to say that maybe there's the Phoenix and you know, she's not in control of herself, there's all sorts of things that like we could have done, specifically because they chose to go with Jean Grey. They could have done these things, and they decided to go with none of it. They just wanted things to happen, and things just happen. Anyway, then she gets tortured and her powers expand, so she has Metzger in her control, and then she waits for like 20 minutes for Spider-Man to defeat the hand ninjas before she even tries to attack him. Why? Was this one of those situations where like she's hoping that Spider-Man will give her the fucking talk no jutsu and talk her down? Because she has Metzger levitating with glass shards pointed at his head before Spider-Man starts fighting the hand. And he's getting his ass whooped for like a solid 5-10 minutes. And then he starts coming back and beating them, and then he breaks in the room and he talks her down, etc. But like, what exactly was she waiting for? Was she like melting his brain slowly? Was she like forcing him to relive traumatic memories? But none of that's stated. It just from the movie. It's just her looking at him for 20 minutes. Maybe, okay, I'll give her this. Maybe she can't really act on her own while she's controlling other people. So she has him, you know, isolated and locked down, and then she has to put all of her focus into the hand ninjas and fighting against Spider-Man. But even with that being the case, I feel like it would be a lot smarter once the hand ninjas start losing kill Metzger, run out of the building, get away. Like, why were you still waiting there when Spider-Man busted the door? It just doesn't make sense, except for, hey, it's a movie. The movie has to have a plot, and it has to progress in these certain sorts of ways, and these characters aren't allowed to act in the way that they obviously would act because we want the plot to, like, tie up nicely. Anyway, that's Jean Grey. There's a lot more issues, but, like, we'll just leave it at that. But then there's the arc that Spider-Man has, and it's never really explained what's going on with his powers. Like, okay, so a telepath tried to hop into his head, so his powers just start expanding. I don't know how that makes sense at all. Like, first of all, why did the telepathy fail? Like, it made sense in the Doctor Strange movie when his body starts moving without his consciousness, because that's his spider sense, his Peter tingle, right? It's protecting his body. It, like, moves autonomously. Like, the way that the spider sense works, if people don't know, it's like, it's precognition. It's like semi-precognition. So it's not like he can see the future, but he's not going to get caught off guard by a bullet that he doesn't see. And we saw that in this movie, right? Like, he just will move out of the way. He'll know what's going to happen, and he'll move out of the way. And it's not his consciousness that does that, his body just moves. So in a scenario where his consciousness is separated from his body moving away from Doctor Strange makes sense. Like, that's the power set. We understand that tracks. But a telepath trying to get in your head and your powers forcing her out, meanwhile, that has nothing to do with being a spider, or like, and that's never been a thing that's, like, been introduced anywhere. Like, it just comes out of no. There's no reason why Jean Grey shouldn't be able to get into his head. She's in his head in the comics. Telepaths get in his head in the comics. Charles Xavier. It's not a thing. They made it up. But anyway, let's say that is a thing. What does kicking a telepath out of your head have to do with your powers expanding? Like, the attempt to get in his head caused his power to expand, and then now he's, like, overstimulated by the new powers. Let's just accept the fact that, like, he can block telepaths, and maybe every time he blocks a telepath, all of his powers amped up. Not just the mental ability to block telepaths gets stronger, but, like, all of his powers amp up. Not going to try to logic around it. Let's just say, you know, it's fiction. We'll allow. That's the way it works. No one knew that's the way it works, but that's the way it works. Okay, I'm gonna stop rambling. Here's the problem. I'm Spider-Man. I'm in this situation. I'm overstimulated. I'm getting these headaches. The hearing, the sight, the sounds, the smells, my powers, I'm way stronger than I used to be, way more aggression, etc., etc. Wouldn't it be 1,000 times easier to use the technology and the 3D printing and all the shit that I have, the technology that I have, to just add dampeners to my mask than to do, and I cannot stress this enough, cutting edge gene splicing experiments on myself while I'm totally alone in a room? Doesn't that seem a little stupid when you can just put earplugs in? Like in the first movie, what does he do? He has homemade goggles that block out a lot of light. I think he had earmuffs that block out a lot of sound. Why did he not just do the same thing now with high-tech gadgets? He has high-tech gadgets. It's not like this is movie one where he's like, oh, goggles wouldn't be enough. No. He has an AI. He has the 3D printer. He could have done this in a much safer way, but he chose to go straight to gene editing. My genes are out of control, so maybe I should splice them, and that'll make them not out of control. The logic just doesn't logic unless you need this to happen for the plot. And we all know what's going to happen with the dampeners in the future with the mutants, but they needed that to happen. They could have made a better reason for it to happen. Anyway. Then there's damage control itself, like the organization. So their goal was to kidnap and experiment on Sarah Gray, Jean Grey's sister, to figure out her psychic powers. So my first question is, how did they know that she was a telepath, since the victims always forget everything? So, like, how did they find out about her, right? Let's imagine that she got caught, like, bragging on camera, or, like, maybe she was really sadistic and she explained what happened to someone after she took over them, and then that person went to damage control, and then they found out about her or whatever. But, like, okay, so damage control stakes out the park and kidnaps Sarah Gray. But to find her in that park, they must have done surveillance. And if they did surveillance, they would have known about Jean Grey also. So why did they leave her behind? I get that Sarah Gray stopped her from running up to them, but why did they not also go after Jean Grey, since that's her sister? And one of them has powers, and you're very interested in those powers. Wouldn't you also want to get the other one, like, just in case? Like, just kidnap her and ask her a couple questions, and do some experiments to see if maybe you can activate powers, or maybe she has latent powers, or, like, would you really leave her in the field? Like why would you do that? You know, like I'd run a couple tests. Like the only thing that makes sense is Jean Grey's powers must have not activated until that day, and that's why like while they were doing their surveillance, maybe they ran tests and they could only see like a telepathic field around Sarah Grey, and Jean Grey's powers didn't activate until after Sarah was kidnapped, or maybe they activated like that morning, but they weren't on surveillance that morning, and all the previous surveillance footage showed that Jean Grey was like didn't have any powers. I don't know. Like honestly, it would make a lot more sense for the plot if Sarah Grey was just a stranger that randomly noticed Jean had similar powers and they only met that day, because then it can be like, hey, we found out about this person, Sarah, who's a telepath, and we've been tracking her, and she hops into people's body and we're gonna take her, etc., etc. And we see her sitting on a bench with this random person right now, but like that could just be another victim, so like let's not pay attention to that. But the person on the bench with her at this park is her sister. I feel like that's highly relevant. Like that wouldn't be something that I ignore, right? It's just like another thing. How did Jean Grey know that it was damage control that took her? It was just a bunch of guys in ski masks that jumped out of a truck and kidnapped my sister. How do I know that it's damage control? Like, did the VMAX telepathic communication, did it come with like a GPS location or something? Because it only said VMAX on it. It didn't say I've been kidnapped. It just said VMAX. But maybe it was like a homing beacon and she was able to like triangulate, and then she was like, you know, it could only be damage control because what other government buildings or whatever in this area. But how do you know it's the government and not just some gang or some mafia or something like that? How do you know? Like, anyway, like for plot's sake, we can allow that. She knows it's damage control. Okay, cool. So eventually damage control does get their hands on Jean Grey, and they start to do experiments on her, just like her sister. So they put her in a clear box that's only slightly too far for her to hurt you. Her powers are to jump from her body into someone else's body. And you know that her range of being able to do that is 33 feet. It's not clear whether or not she needs to see the person to do that, but presumably that helps, I guess. I think in the movie, most, if not all times, she's looking at the person before she jumps into them. So like that could be a couple 33 feet and clear eyesight into the person that you're jumping into, something like that. So we know that about her and her powers. So your plan as damage control is to be in a glass box so she can still see you. She can't get to you because you're not 33 feet. But you're only 40 feet. He said we were 40 feet away from you. So that's only 7 feet. Why would you play it so close to the chest? Why would you take that risk, right? Like, why are you not watching this experiment from afar? Why do you not have solid rock between you and her? Couldn't you do this experiment from your office on the 33rd floor and have her in the basement or some shit like that? Like, it truly doesn't make sense. Again, unless this is just a movie and we need certain things to happen to move the movie along. And for people who don't care about that, again, if you just want to go to the movies and you know, you're drunk, you're high, you got your kids with you just want to see a movie, turn your brain off, you don't care about these things, I can see why you really like the movie. But if you do care about the movie making sense, this is the kind of stuff that like I can't suspend my disbelief when the characters are moving this way. And like one final thing, the Hulk kind of annoyed me in this movie. I don't think he was really necessary. He was only necessary for the whole gene splicing thing, and that was only necessary because someone forced Jean Grey into the movie. So I don't think he was supposed to be in there to begin with. But there was a moment that really, like, not nearly as bad as all the other stuff I talked about, but it kind of irked me. Is the moment where Jean Grey loses control of him and Banner comes back, right? He goes from being the Hulk to being Banner. And Spider-Man's in the room. And Banner feels the Hulk breaking out again, and Banner does nothing. He does nothing. He just lets the Hulk come back out, even though he doesn't want him back. Like, didn't Banner learn a bunch of like meditation hacks to stop the transformation? Wasn't that a thing? Wasn't that a thing in the MCU? Couldn't he tell Spider-Man about the sun's getting real low, big guy, like that lullaby shit that Black Widow used to do? Like, I'm Banner, and I'm afraid of what's gonna happen when I turn into the Hulk. And there is a way to transform me back from the Hulk into Bruce Wayne, and I probably don't want everyone knowing about my weakness, right? But it's like categorically true that Spider-Man's a good guy. He's all over the news. As Bruce Banner, you would know about him. If you're in the room with Spider-Man and you think you're about to turn into the Hulk, why not tell him about the password? Like why not?
And yeah, those are my thoughts. It's too good to be a bad movie, and it's too bad to be a good movie. I rated it a 7 out of 10. That might be a little controversial, but that's what it is. I think I'll probably watch it again, and maybe my rating will change. Although I feel like it's probably just going to get lower, because I feel like I'm probably going to notice more things the second time around. Again, I went to a movie theater that was loud and ghetto, and I caught all of these problems, I'm probably going to catch a whole lot more next time I go. So, yeah, if you if you like listening to this, make sure you like and subscribe and comment if you have a thought or a critique on my critique or something like that. But yeah, this is Best Blurred signing out.